Yeah, Taylor, I don't mean to be rude, but why the are you laughing all the time? I don't get it. Sorry, apologies for my language, but honestly, I find it unbelievable. What are you laughing at?
Yeah. Piers Morgan had a panel on his show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, made up of MAGA right-winger Tomi Lahren, journalist Taylor Lorenz, and author Marc Lamont-Hill to talk about the recent killing of the United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan. We're going to take a look at clips of this panel on Piers Morgan Uncensored. As you can imagine, as always seems to be the case on Piers Morgan's show, things got very heated. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's check this out together.
This issue of Brian Thompson, one of the top healthcare executives in the country, I'm just curious why your first reaction would be to his cold-blooded execution. And people wonder why we want these executives dead. And then you later commented when people were giving you a lot of blowback, I'm not alone, you said. Healthcare executive down with party balloons was on an post that you commented on. Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where, you believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again...
We're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's been gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Thousands of Americans that he murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the system.
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving healthcare from people like the CEO. Now, I want to fix this system. You're right. We shouldn't be going around shooting each other with vigilante justice. No. I think that it is a good thing that this murder has led to America, or really the media elites and politicians in this country paying attention to this issue for the first time. You mentioned you couldn't understand why somebody would feel this reaction when they watched a CEO die. It's because you have not dealt, it sounds like, with the American healthcare system in the way that millions of other Americans have.
I've dealt with the healthcare system in various ways in America. I don't think.
So Piers Morgan says that he's dealt with the healthcare system in America, and like Taylor Lorenz is saying, I'm sure he hasn't dealt with it the way that average Americans do. People who live in the UK who follow this channel, let me know in the comments. I believe that Piers Morgan has a house in Los Angeles, but I think he probably lives in the UK as well. So I'm sure he's probably able to take advantage of the UK system instead of having to deal with the US healthcare system in terms of having claims denied and that kind of thing. And even if he lives here full time and he's dealing with our system the way Americans do and he has insurance and all of that, his net worth, according to the net worth websites, is estimated at $20 million. So if they deny a claim for Piers Morgan, his insurance company, he can probably pay out of pocket and be okay. The vast majority of Americans do not have $20 million. So when their insurance company says, sorry, we're not going to cover your life-saving drug, or we're not going to pay for your surgery, then what do? They don't have $20 million to pay those bills. So no, I don't really think Piers Morgan understands what Americans are going through in terms of the U.S. healthcare system and why people might be angry, even though it's wrong for people to laugh like Taylor Lorenz is doing here or cheer on what happened with this CEO. There's still a whole lot of people angry at our healthcare system, and elites like Piers Morgan are never going to understand that.
I think it's perfect by any means, but the idea that I would view it as something...
Have you been denied life
hang on.
treatment?
The idea that I would view it as something joyful that a man has been, who's just a healthcare executive, has been executed in the street, I find completely bizarre. Let me bring in Tomi here. Yeah. Tomi, I keep being told... Hang on, Taylor, I'll come back to you.
Okay, don't say I'm joyful. I said you said you were feeling
joyful.
Yeah, I take that back. Joyful is the wrong word, Piers.
You think?
But I said, as I clarified, yeah.
You think joyful is the wrong word? Yeah.
Sure,
I'd say it is.
Vindicated, celebratory, because again, it feels like justice in this system when somebody responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans suffers the same fate as those tens of thousands of Americans who he murdered or
Tomi, whether Taylor wants to retract the word joyful or not, we all heard her say it, and I was just shocked. I mean, I find that kind of response utterly shocking, that someone could be murdered in the middle of Manhattan, who happens to be an executive for a healthcare company, and people think this is something that makes them feel joyful.
Yeah, this is still the remnants of the incredibly bratty Occupy Wall Street movement that's morphed into 100 other movements by now, all equally as disgusting. But to celebrate the murder of a husband and a father simply because you disagree with his position at a company, or you disagree with the company, or you disagree with the system of healthcare that we have in the U.S. is quite frankly sick, twisted, and disgusting. Why you'd celebrate anybody's murder, especially just an innocent man who you happen to disagree with, is really shocking to me. But it also just goes to show that the left, and many on the left, have a tendency to believe that violence like this, political violence, is necessary. It's a means to an end. And if they believe in the end and they believe in the means, it's really sick and wrong. If you want to have a conversation about healthcare in this country, that's fine. Let's have that all day long. But to be joyful, or even to say you're not empathetic about somebody losing their life when they leave behind two young boys, especially during the holiday season, the same day that millions of New Yorkers are celebrating a tree lighting, I mean, that's just too far for me, a bridge too far. The loving and tolerant left is at it again, Piers.
And Tomi Lahren here with the fake outrage over this, that she would be disgusted that somebody lacks the empathy over someone who's killed, even if it's somebody that they disagree with. Okay, what right-wingers like Tomi Lahren, how much empathy do they show when an unarmed black person gets killed by the police? They get pulled over because they have a burnout taillight and the police officer kills them. How much empathy do they show? The MAGA right-wingers like Tomi Lahren, how much empathy do they, in those cases like that, a lot of times those are fathers with children. Do they ever talk about that? No. What about the people killed in war, the fathers with children, or even children themselves who are killed in war? If it's a war that they think is justified, how much empathy do MAGA right-wingers like Tomi Lahren show for those people? So spare me the fake outrage.
Taylor, I don't mean to be rude, but why the fuck are you laughing all the time? I don't get it. Sorry, apologies for my language, but honestly, I find it unbelievable. What are you laughing at?
I am laughing at Tomi's insane mischaracterization of why people are angry. It has nothing to do with Occupy Wall Street. This is a feeling that people feel across the left and the right. You mentioned Ben Shapiro earlier in his video about the healthcare exec. I encourage people to check the comment section on that video, okay? 100% of America is united on this, or rather the majority of America is united on this. We do not think that this healthcare system that is murdering, again, thousands of innocent Americans, who, by the way, Tomi, also have families, also have children. These people are being killed by our barbaric and evil for-profit healthcare system. And I agree, we should not necessarily go around shooting people in the street. And while I am joyful that this issue has been brought to attention,
did you hear that, Piers? Not necessarily.
It's just unbelievable.
They shouldn't be shot in the street. They shouldn't be shot in the streets because, again, it doesn't solve the systemic problem. You could United Healthcare will just appoint a new ghoulish CEO. The point is that we need to fix these systems so that, again, people like Brian or whoever's in charge of these companies stops murdering tens of thousands of innocent Americans. That is the crime.
Let me bring in Marc on this. I mean, Marc, I'm sorry, but there's just no justification for laughing your way through a segment like this, talking about how joyful you were that this happened. Is there?
Again, Piers, I'm not joyful that
Sorry,
it happened.
Taylor, I'm asking Mark, not you.
Well, then stop.
I heard you. You said it. You may have recanted it, but unfortunately,
no, I'm clarifying it because
unfortunately,
again,
as you know, this show keeps receipts. We all know what we saw,
I'm not
and we all
denying
know
that
what we
I
heard.
said it. I'm not denying that I said it, but I'm denying that your interpretation of it, which is an insane.
I know what joyful means. It fills you with joy.
Yes, I'm joyful that people are paying attention to this issue.
No, you were joyful that he got murdered. That's what you said.
I am.
Then you realised what you said. Then you realised what you said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm clarifying it for you.
Thought, that's going to make things even worse for me. Mark, let me bring you in.
Just to be clear, things are great for me because, again, I am on the side of the rest of America, which believes that this for-profit healthcare system.
Actually, you're not, because most Americans do not think they felt joy in that moment. It's you.
No, because, again, I didn't feel joy in that moment. I felt joy that people are paying attention to this issue.
You told me you did.
Again, you're misinterpreting. No, you.
No, I tell you what, just to clarify.
Just to jump in.
Do you want me to play it again? Do you want me to remind you?
Stop misrepresenting my views.
Do you want me to remind you what you said? Do you want me to remind you?
You can repeat what I said all I want, but again, you are misrepresenting my views. I am telling you how I feel.
Social media will remind you later. Don't worry about it. Mark,
again, Piers, I'm glad you're
Taylor,
able to
can you show some manners to your other panelists, please? Mark.
Well, stop misquoting me.
No, I quoted you directly. You then recanted it.
Then stop misrepresenting my views and my feelings.
I'm not. You felt joyful, then you wished you hadn't said it because you knew how bad it sounded.
No, Piers. No, Piers.
I quoted you directly. Mark.
Again, you are misrepresenting how I feel. So stop misrepresenting.
Let me as an independent third person here, along the time of third and fourth person here, maybe offer some clarity to this. It sounds like she used the word joy. You found it appalling.
Did you?
She says that she misspoke. She recanted, and you're saying that despite her recanting, she still said it in the first place. It seems to me the question is just whether you believe her or not. But we can move past that. I happen to think that none of us should find joy in death. None of us should find joy in people being killed. This was a person. This was a human being. This was somebody who was loved and loved people. I find no joy, no value, no humor in any human loss of life or animal loss of life. But in this case, I think it's important to stress that because of everything that happened on the internet. That said, we can have two conversations simultaneously. We can find great sadness in the fact that this man was killed and also see it as a valuable and rich site of opportunity to discuss the bigger picture of healthcare in America, which doesn't lead to individual political assassinations, but does lead to the death of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and maybe even millions of people every single day, some of which is entirely preventable. We live in a system that prioritizes profits over people. And the fact that so many people who are otherwise normal and humane and loving and empathetic were able to find humor or joy in this tragic death, it says something about who we are as people, but it also says something to how this wicked system has damaged us and corroded our character and eroded our sensibilities. I'm saying let's have that conversation about how sad this man's individual death is, but let's not let that be the only story that we tell. Let's also tell the story about this healthcare system. That's all.
Obviously, there's a much bigger debate to have about healthcare system.
And of course, Piers Morgan does not want to have that bigger debate. Now, Marc Lamont-Hill does a much better job of expressing what it seems that maybe Taylor Lorenz was trying to say. She didn't do a good job of explaining it at all. That yes, we can believe two different things. It can be terrible that this CEO was killed, but it also can be terrible that so many people die or are ruined financially or have all kinds of other horrible consequences by our American healthcare system, where you have health insurance companies who are able to deny people's claims. From all the reports that came out, UHC is the worst, denying about 1/3 of people's claims. And so we have a system in the United States that, again, Piers Morgan, I doubt understands because we're the only country in the world, the only industrialized country in the world, where people go bankrupt because of their medical bills. Medical debt is the number one form of debt in the United States. And so it would be nice if out of this horrible event that happened, if we could have an actual conversation about how many people's lives are negatively affected by insurance companies denying people's claims, not paying out claims, not providing the coverage that people are paying for, and the detrimental effects that that has on our society. Of course, Piers Morgan didn't want to have that conversation. He just wanted to chastise Taylor Lorenz because he always wants to chastise anybody that he perceives as being on the left. But let me know what you think about all of this. Let me know in the comments what you think about what happened with this CEO, about the United States healthcare system, about Piers Morgan being tone deaf on this, about what Tomi Lahren had to say. Do you think that she actually has empathy for the people that are victims of our healthcare system? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.